Crypto mining. Now, a lot of this is already set up here, but I'll let our guest talk about this from liveenergy.com. St. Clair Newburn the Fourth, CEO, joining us. Tell us about crypto and the whole crypto mining experience. What is that for those of us that don't know?
Okay, so it's really Bitcoin mining. Crypto can mean a lot of different things, but Bitcoin mining is specifically the thing that's coming to Texas in a big way. And there's a lot of misconceptions about it. But basically what happened is China banned Bitcoin mining in the early part of 2021. And so a ton of miners were looking for the next best place to go. And they ended up in places like Kazakhstan and Texas. Texas has very cheap electricity when you consider the prices around the globe. And so it was a natural fit for Bitcoin miners. And so they started coming to Texas in a big way in the middle of last year. And people immediately were like, oh my gosh, this is going to be terrible. They use all this energy. But something pretty amazing happened. The CEO of ERCOT, Brad Jones, he came out on a CNBC interview in March, and he basically said that this is a great opportunity for us. And I'll tell you why, but that's the quick and dirty of what happened. Mining got banned in China. All the miners started looking for a place to go, and Texas happened to be one of the best places on the planet because we have regulatory stability. It's a safe place to do business, and we have some of the cheapest electricity on the planet.
So what I think we should probably expand on a little bit, because it's even a mystery kind of to me, the entire process, but the whole Bitcoin mining process, you get the machines, the Bitcoin mining machines, and what are they and how do you set them up and what's that process like?
So they use ASICs, which is an application-specific integrated circuit. It's just a little chip that does one computational function really fast and really efficiently. And we've gotten to industrial scale with Bitcoin mining. So instead of it being something that people do on a home computer, they have specific machines that do the mining. And essentially they're just securing the blockchain by processing transactions, and they use a lot of energy. And the interesting thing about the impact they'll have on Texas is, and Brad Jones, the CEO of ERCOT, he alluded to these two things. There's some unique things in Texas that we need to recognize. Number one, we have so much renewable capacity that we have a surplus in Texas. So we've got more wind and solar than we can possibly use. And there's so much surplus capacity that sometimes it even costs money for the wind or solar providers to put power into the grid. The prices go negative, and so they get charged for putting electricity into the grid. So the Bitcoin miners can come and soak up all that surplus renewable energy, and that supports the renewable developers. It allows them to actually monetize all that capacity instead of having to waste it. So that's a win. And then the second thing that Mr. Jones mentioned was that Bitcoin miners are very flexible and responsive to price. In fact, like he said, this is fantastic. And so you're thinking, okay, why would the guy running ERCOT say this is fantastic for someone to come here that uses a bunch of energy? And the reason is because Bitcoin miners are very responsive. You can turn them off and have them drop 100% of their, or not 100%, but drop 97% of their load in a fraction of a second. And so what that does is it looks like a battery to ERCOT. So if you think about it, when we're short power, so let's say we have a really hot day and a 500 megawatt generator goes offline. Now the system is imbalanced. And so ERCOT, what would you think the first thing that they'd want to do is, Zach? If you're short electricity, you're going to try to do what? Turn on generation, right?
Yeah.
So you could do that, but if you had the ability to flip a switch and turn 500 megawatts off, it kind of looks like a battery, and that's basically what the Bitcoin miners represent, is this big chunk of power that they can flip a switch, and now they've just freed up 500 megawatts of capacity and brought the system back into balance.
Joining us on 710 KURV from liveenergy.com, he's an energy expert, St. Clair Newburn the Fourth. Davis Rankin, I believe you have a question.
Can you explain how this ties into or connects to or is related to something called blockchain?
Yeah, so blockchain is essentially the technology that Bitcoin uses. So when you think about Bitcoin, what it's doing is it's allowing people to transfer value. There's a ledger that keeps track of all that, and every 10 minutes, all the transactions that need to get cleared are bundled up into a block of transactions, and then they get validated by the miners. And then the next block gets validated, and that happens every 10 minutes. And each block refers to the previous block, and so that's why they call it the blockchain, because it's like this chain of information that is impossible to hack or fake, and it uses a proof of work consensus mechanism, which it's a complicated way of saying they've made it so that you have to spend energy and computational power in order to mine blocks. And so blockchain is just a series of transactions that are in blocks. So every 10 minutes, all the transactions that were submitted to the network in that period of time are cleared and become part of the ledger that is unhackable. You can't go back and change it. And so it creates a trustless system for people to transfer value.
So it's like if I had like an assembly line of presents and I say you can't get in unless you solve this math problem, is it kind of like that? You can't open the contents of this box unless okay. That's what I thought it was. I'm glad you confirmed that for me, because that's the impression that I had in my mind. And then I was like, well, wait a second, I could be wrong on this one. As far as the amount of energy that is taken up by the Bitcoin farmers, how big is what the size of one of these farms on average, and how much energy does it eat up?
So you're starting to see sites that are hundreds of megawatts. So I think Brad Jones, in that interview he did in March, he said that he expected 5,000 megawatts of mining to exist in Texas in 2 years. So just to give you a sense, the market, will peak at like 75,000 megawatts. So 5,000 megawatts of mining load is pretty significant, but he likes it because it gives him another tool. It's like, if you think about it, if the grid is short power, you can either say, hey, generators, turn up, produce more power, or it's even easier to just pull the plug because it has the exact same impact. And so, as the grid operator, he likes it because it gives him another tool that he can use to make sure that he balances the grid.
It's like an extra buffer zone. So when, like, say, Winter Storm Uri comes, well, no, that's a bad example. But say, like, in the heat waves right now, right? Hey, we need another, we need like a little bit of a buffer zone. Could you guys hold off on the Bitcoin mining for a little bit? And they say, yeah, sure. And that frees up that wattage.
That capacity, yes. Yeah, that's exactly what happens. Yeah. And they don't even have to tell them. So here's what happens. So when grid conditions start to get tight, the prices start going up. And so if you're a miner, you're buying electricity for 5 cents and you're hoping that you're making 20 cents for every kilowatt hour you consume. If the market starts rising because conditions are tight, and that's a feature of the Texas market, like when the grid's tight, prices start going up. So once they get over $200 a megawatt, $300 a megawatt, the miners are happy to turn off and sell their power back into the grid. So you've got all this capacity that is automatically got this economic incentive to respond to prices, and they do, because there's a certain point where they make more money just selling the capacity back into the market as opposed to, instead of using it to mine Bitcoin.
That's incredible that they can sell the energy back. That is what is unbelievable to me, because I always thought it was like, hey, you bought it, no refunds type thing,
So they have special contracts, and that's one of the things that we do is we help with structuring deals so that they can buy a hedge, and it may say, all right, you've got 100 megawatts at 5 cents for the next 5 years, and so they're watching, and anytime they can get more value by just selling the capacity back into the market, they're happy to do it. And so the incentives are aligned. When we need it, they're incentivized by the price of the market to let that capacity go, and that's precisely when we need it.
Davis Rankin, do you have one more question before we wrap things up with our friend St. Clair Bernard? Sorry, New Bern Bernard.
My only question is sort of vague. If one of the ways you can mess with the system now is to physically counterfeit money. How do you? Apparently, we catch all those guys too. How do you counterfeit this stuff, or can you?
So that's one of the things that Bitcoin solves. Like people have been working on digital cash for like a long time, like decades, and they could never figure out the double spend problem, like how to make sure that you can't spend the same digital value twice. And so that's one of the unique innovations that Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever that is, created. He created a solution to the double spend problem. So there has been no scenario in the history of Bitcoin's operation that anybody has ever double spent. You know, that's what you would have to do if you were going to create fake money. You would have to have money that exists and then create a fake of it and then spend it, therefore double spending it. And so Bitcoin prevents double spending. That was one of the unique innovations of Bitcoin's protocol.
That is incredible. St. Clair, hey, thanks for the
Thank
explanation, and I want to bring you on another time to talk about electric vehicles in the state of Texas. That's another banger of a topic that we got to talk about it another time, though. Appreciate it. From liveenergy.com, St. Clair Newburn IV.